He's going to bring back his. Drive up his viewing by like close to. I think it's like at least even. Oh, we didn't get here.
And so we would have to cross, we would have to look at one to see a house.
See if you have your own day. The numbers go up to 1 million.
Through the roof, right? Yeah. Shaking the thing.
So I don't want to have to take people gotta pay me right now. You can contribute to my campaign.
Yeah.
Oh, good eyes. Okay, members, thank y'all for coming. I know we've been juggling times a good little bit because of the session running late and our subcommittee meeting. Visitors, thank y'all again for coming in the room and being here with us today. Let me open up, let's see, we'll ask Vice Chair right next to me here. Do you mind opening us up in prayer?
Yeah, I did the prayer for the...
You were so good, dude.
That was so good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for those in the audience today who've taken the time to be here. We pray that you bless them. Bless all our children across the state who are in schools right now and their teachers, that they would have a fantastic school year, grow and learn, and just be that next generation of leaders that we need in this state. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Great. Thank you. And if we can, Senator, if you don't mind, we're going to put you right here in front of us, and I'll get your mic on the table there. And let's start out with 32, Senate Bill 32. And Senator, if you would, thank you for being here today, and thank you for crafting this legislation. If you'd read your LC number so that we're sure we're on the correct number with you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. Let's see what number I've got. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I got the right one. So I have 491867S. No, that's not right. Isn't there a okay.
47304.
Yes,
Yeah,
hold
so
on.
I just need a copy of it. I know what it
Yes.
says, but
Letter. We're walking you one around, and just confirm that number again when we give it to you there.
thank you.
That way we're all reading off
Yep.
the same one.
Yep. So LC 47304-2S.
Perfect. All right. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I think we've presented on this legislation in the past, but basically, just to give a little bit of brief history, Alyssa's Law we introduced basically to improve and enhance communication between schools, 911, and first responders when a school crisis is happening, and that could be anything from a medical emergency to a school shooting situation. And this bill and the idea around it came from and after the Parkland, Florida shooting during that time. And so basically, in a nutshell, with this bill, we're just trying to create greater integration of these technologies in our schools across the state. I think overwhelmingly a majority of school districts across the state are using this or some sort of similar technology. Also, I know in our subcommittee, and I want to thank Chairman Hilton during that process, and also GMA and Director Stallings for some of the cleanup language that we've added. So to be clear that this bill, creates a process with DOAS for multiple vendors to bid on whatever is put out there. And also to, I think, just addressing some of the concerns GMA had just in relation to two-way communications and some other things in terms of new technologies. I know they're trying to currently administer and implement at this time. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just turn it back to you and just see if there's questions.
Members, let me give you a minute to read it. I know many of you were part of the subcommittee and had questions here. Again, I'll attest this is one of our goals, trying to provide as safe of an environment as possible for our students. And this hits on that. All right. Vice Chair, I believe you're up, number 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And those who were not in our policy subcommittee, the substantive changes that we made from the original bill were just to push out 3 of the dates that you'll see there. So 2026 and then 2225 is below. And then worked with GMA on line 22 and 23 to insert existing technology found in each local public safety answering point. So other than that, no major changes. I think it passed unanimously through our committee and Mr. Chairman at the appropriate time.
Okay. Let me field 1 or 2 more questions. Thank you. Number 9, is that Representative Evans? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator. Yes, I wanted to say, I'm in support of this bill. And also, as a side note, in the Public Safety Committee, we'll be hearing a bill about using software systems to make sure we have good maps of schools. So that will work well with this bill as well. So I just wanted to let you all know we'll be hearing that after this today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Seeing no more questions on this bill, it is the appropriate time, Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion do pass.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on Senate Bill 32 as presented to us. Seeing no more further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. That one will carry. Thank you, Senator, and don't get up yet. We've got another one for us to do for you.
I'm used to being the star witness in your committee, Mr. Chairman.
You are, but before we go on to this other bill, who are you planning on carrying that Senate bill?
I think Vice Chairman Hilton.
Hilton to carry it for you? Gotcha. Okay. Could have trouble, right? Let me do a little bit of explaining on Senate Bill 351. Members, you have a substitute before you that we did in subcommittee, and you've got some added language on the top. And I believe we are going to begin, or should begin, with the LC 491899S. Let's get copies out to everybody. Senator, do you have that copy, that LC in front of you?
No.
Okay, let's get them distributed here. Old and
Appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, everybody should have 2. Okay, and what we're doing is one of them was the sub done in subcommittee, and one's had some language added to it this week, and is now coming before you. So, but we're going to work off the most recent language there that Senator has been a part of too, but that is 1899S. Do you have that one now in front of you? Wait a minute. I got my numbers screwed up. Let me back us up. The one we're going to work off of right now, since Courtney squared me away here, is LC 491909S. Yes, that's the most recent. I was taking the one on top as the most recent. I've switched it now. And Representative Cox, I believe you're going to explain the second part of those additions. You can either do it from your seat or you can do it down there. But let's, for the full committee to hear this bill, let's begin with the senator covering the first few sections of this bill. And again, read that number LC you're working off of, so we're all
Yeah.
looking at it with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have LC 491909S
Correct.
is
Thank
the
you.
updated version.
Floor's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to go through different sections as I did with Vice Chairman Hilton and his committee. And then I'll let, at the end, I guess, if you want to take questions or however you want to do it. So basically, in front of you, Senate Bill 351, Protecting Georgian Children on Social Media Act of 2024, came, I guess, was kind of created or originated with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and myself as, two fathers of young kids. My wife, she's a school teacher in a high school here in Metro Atlanta. And just the dynamics that we've seen just around social media in the learning environment. We already, I think most of us would agree, the societal, implications of what we're seeing just in terms of teenage bullying, content, all the way to, we have a separate committee discussion about national security concerns. I'm sure some of y'all have seen around TikTok and others. But this bill specifically really wanted to get into, kind of the impact, from a social, emotional, physical perspective on our kids, my kids, your grandkids, maintaining personal security, also the impacts that we've seen in some schools now. And I talked about this in Vice Chairman Hilton's committee, just around human trafficking. That's we're starting to see in our schools, just because as parents, teachers, staff, law enforcement, prosecutors, seeing more signs from kids. I think kids being more willing to speak up because they're educated on the topic. Even though not sometimes, all the time, those situations are very scary. And so we worked over many months. I think we started this process probably last July or August, having these conversations with school districts, administrators. I know we got some really good feedback from the Georgia School Board Association, Superintendent Woods. And then part of this bill is we talk about parental consent from industry, from companies such as Meta and others, just in terms of what they're doing, what they're not doing. And so I think this bill has probably gone through, and Brad Vaughn, I want to thank him and the Lieutenant Governor's office, who's been working hard, pulling this together, making this happen. I mean, we've probably have gone through somewhere, I would say it could be 12, 15 iterations to get to this point. This policy is complex. It's not easy. In some cases, it's groundbreaking, and then in some cases, as I'll talk about around the cyberbullying statute, I mean, I don't believe that's been updated in over a decade to adapt to current technologies, current environment that we all operate in. So that's just to kind of give some background on where and why did this bill, why was it created? So just, I'm going to walk through sections of the bill and then just take questions. So basically, we updated, if the sections don't align with my notes, I'm sure they do. Y'all can kick me later for that. But basically, we're updating and requiring the Department of Education to develop and publish model programs around instruction on social media that deals with social, emotional, physical effects, the effects of social media on mental health of users, how social media manipulates or influences thoughts and behaviors, how to maintain personal security and identify cyberbullying, predatory behavior, and human trafficking on the internet and social media, and then also, too, how to report suspicious behavior encountered on the internet, and how in social media to appropriate persons and authorities, and what are safe ways to do that, because we know all our kids are sometimes scared to say something, do something because of the implications of being bullied or retaliation. So I think there's not enough education out there. I know in Paulding County we've had this discussion. I appreciate our current district attorney, Matthew Rollins, for leading on this topic because of the concerns of lack of education that we've had in our community on as it relates to social media, but also in particular human trafficking in the community, to protect kids. Continuing on, we're asking that each local school board adopt to prohibit and prevent students from accessing social media platforms through the use of computer equipment, communication services, internet access that is owned, operated, leased, otherwise by the local school board. We know that in many of our school districts, there is a level of filtering of what can be accessed on those networks. And I do appreciate those members of the General Assembly trying to take further steps, such as yourself, Chairman Irwin, Vice Chairman Hilton, and other members of this committee. We know cybersecurity is a significant issue and topic right now across America. And I think what we're seeing in terms of the content being accessed, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, is a complete distraction in the classroom. I know when I talk to my wife, I talk to principals and administrators, the number one distractor in the classroom from the content being put up on the whiteboard or chalkboard, as we used to have back in the day, is what we're talking about today. I did say in Chairman Hilton's committee, if I had my way, especially in kindergarten, I don't know that I would let a single cell phone be let through the door. That's another policy discussion for another day. But I know that at our middle school, personal devices, phones, tablets are not allowed, and you basically are issued a tablet or a device to use during school time. And I know that's another hot button topic. Every school district's a little different, but I think kind of if we're going to increase the value of that classroom time for the student, but we're going to increase that value of time and culture for the teacher to want to stay in his or her job in terms of retention, in terms of quality of life. I think this is one of the biggest things that we could be doing. I don't think we all say it well enough as leaders, but I don't want to belabor that. But this to me is one of the biggest things we can do. The other part, going into Section 2.4, is updating and modernizing the Georgia bullying and cyberbullying statutes. So basically, all this is doing is updating those statutes to take in consideration of school equipment and devices under kind of this current generation of where we're at. It also requires that DOE update model policies regarding bullying to include recommendations on age-appropriate interventions and services, including counseling for individuals who are targets or suspected victims of bullying. And so just kind of going one more step, and I do want to thank our school leaders out there and the superintendents I've heard from who have been trying to make these strides or are making these strides in each and every community. Section 3.1, and I know in the last committee meeting there was questions about age verification. So this part of the bill is basically requiring social media platforms to make commercially reasonable efforts to verify the age of account holders and treat any minor as an individual on the platform under the age of 16. Platforms must prohibit anyone under 16 from opening a social media account unless the platform obtains express consent from the minor, the guardian, through commercially reasonable methods using available technology. This section also requires social media platforms to make available, upon the request of a minor or guardian, a list of descriptions, the features offered by the social media platform relating to censoring or monitoring content available on the platform, including features that can be disabled or modified in the account. This section also requires social media platforms to prohibit the following: the display of any advertising in the minor account holder's account based on such minor account holder's personal information except age and location, and the collection and use of personal information from the post, content, messages, text, or otherwise of the minor. And I know there are companies currently you're either trying to enhance or they're doing this, such as Meta and others, trying to protect minors. And I think we've seen some of the conversations from both sides of the aisle in Congress just on some of these topics to make sure that kids, especially those in this age bracket all the way down to kindergarten or younger, are protected. I know I said, not trying to be mean, but I did tell, I know one of our colleagues in the last committee meeting that if you got a kid in 2nd or 3rd grade and they're on one of these social media platforms, that's probably a personal responsibility conversation we can have offline, and I'd be more than willing to have it. One of the things, too, we had questions on was authority and enforcement. And so the way the bill is written currently, the Attorney General would have the authority to enforce the provisions of this bill. And then finally, the effective date would be July 1st of 2025, just to make sure that there's enough time for the school districts and DOE to create and adopt some of the model policies there are questions about. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you and answer any questions. Thank you.
Let's cover the entire bill as it goes, so, or as it's before us at this time. I see our state school superintendent stepped in the room. Thank you, Superintendent, for always coming to our meetings here. So thank you for being here today. Representative Cox, why don't you get down in front of the group if you would, and cover the additions that have been made to the bill. And the floor is yours, Representative.
Okay, thank you. So if you go to page 19, section 3-2. Members, we're adding Chairman Jasper's House Bill 910, which we voted out of the House 165-1 and the Senate Judiciary. This is the bill that will, and as it has in other states, cause porn websites to leave the state. Individuals who want to access porn sites must show a valid ID to gain access. Porn site or third parties must verify and dispose of IDs once verified. This very same bill was upheld in Texas by the Texas U.S. Court of Appeals, resulting in folks like Pornhub to leave the state almost immediately. Chairman Jaspers approves of this addition, and that's what section 3-2 is.
Give you a minute here to read over it, committee members.
What was the House Bill number again?
910, House Bill 910.
It's the same wording.
Same wording.
I'm just giving you members a few minutes here just to look over this addition of this language. Yeah, just push your button. We've got a couple of questions that have popped up here. I'm just, again, taking my time so everybody's got a chance to read over it. And we'll get right to you. Senator, maybe this is the appropriate time. Y'all got a pretty good technology filtering bill over there in the Senate. We would appreciate that House bill looked at by
I will say
Senator.
for the record, I have said the same to Chairman Dixon and have encouraged for the two great minds of the House and the Senate to get together and get that pushed through.
Thank you.
Very good bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, let's start with number 21. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator, for this bill. The question that's been brought to me, and curious to get your thoughts on it, because I'm trying to figure out the answer to it, on the age verification. If you require age verification to confirm someone is under 16, doesn't that really open up age verification for everyone. Say I'm 35, right, and I want to just create a social media account. Don't I have to prove to them that I'm over the age of 16 and not under the age of 16? Do you see where I'm going with the question?
I mean, I sort of do. I mean, I think, no offense, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to say you're being dramatic, but but I get what you're saying. But I think based on what we've seen and researched with some of the different industry in terms of how they're handling that or moving towards that, I think, based on their algorithms and content and monitoring, content to an extent, I think they can say very clearly what is adult content and what is minor content. And from that perspective, I think just on the pure verification piece, I think, putting steps in place to make sure, you're who you say you are and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that it opens the door for, my, 70-year-old, whatever, to be questioned on whether it's, him or her.
That makes sense. So, yeah, because what I was thinking is if you have to prove that you're under 16, you almost have to prove the inverse, but I guess what I'm hearing from you is that if I'm 32, 28, whatever that, over 16, I can log in, create an account, and they can tell if I'm in and around that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to speak too plainly, but I kind of almost want to say, like, let's not be foolish, because we know that all these social media companies, they can hear, listen, see the type of content, and I think they know pretty concretely whether, you're, searching for, who's doing whatever the latest barbecue, recipe, or you're looking for, what's going on the latest, kid show.
If I was searching Barbie versus
whatever.
grills, I got you.
Same in my house, but right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 25, floor leader.
I appreciate the bill, and actually I just want to clarify something regarding if it's a personal device that ends up at the school and there's a bullying situation going on and they're not connected to any school function, school internet, anything, and they are cyberbullying another student, whether it's on campus or off campus. How is that going to be administered? What's your thought process? Because you can't necessarily lock down what a kid uses.
But you're saying there's I didn't mean to interrupt you, floor leader, but in the sense of a personal device and there's accusation or alleged accusation of bullying that the school's investigating. My understanding, just from experiences of working with law enforcement and prosecutors, local, state policy code will kick in.
Okay.
And I think if there's an open investigation or something going on, I mean, prosecutors and law enforcement will go down those steps of, in some cases, depending on the level of bullying or what's going on, it could trigger steps for that device to be confiscated or looked into or otherwise. I know in some cases of human trafficking, those little pieces, similar to what you're describing, there are triggers that are happening to basically start pulling devices from kids to track back to who is the perpetrator or what's going on. So this bill does not interfere with law enforcement or prosecutors or their ability to currently do their job. All this bill does is basically shutting down those websites in schools, and they're basically not allowed.
Right, and then the school system can't be held liable for a personal device that happens to be, we were at a soccer game on Friday night, half the people there were not from that same community. So if they're on their own personal devices and they're my wife's a high school administrator. It's amazing what freshmen, how they'll communicate with each other. But they don't have any control over it if they're not on their network, correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. And I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe either, from the School Board Association or one of the school districts, I think brought forth that language just in terms of making sure that, the risk does not go back on the school district for something that's, Thank you.
Let me clarify so we haven't crossed wires here. We're talking about state-owned equipment, devices, servers only, correct?
Correct.
And so somebody that is on their own device, on their own service,
Right.
you're not
No.
filtering or, yeah.
Yeah, what I think where Representative Wade is going though is if, like, you got a lot of these Apple iPads that don't have connection, and the only way you can get to connectivity is through the school Wi-Fi or the school server. So just using that as another example.
Yep.
Yep.
Gotcha. I'm with you. Okay. Number 9.
Not to pick on Apple.
Gotcha.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do have a comment but a question, but actually this is confusing me a little bit. So I thought that we were doing not just on school devices, but all devices about the age verification for social media.
So I think Chairman's question was as it relates to the network and devices in a school setting. And that is correct. That is only for school-owned devices. The age verification is what applies to industry. That's separate from what I think what the chairman.
Okay, I just thank you for that clarification. And I will say I share Representative Hilton's kind of concern about as far as age verification. If you have to prove you're 16, I mean, who doesn't? If you're opening up account, like I guess I think everyone that opens a new account will have to prove their age, probably. I mean, and I'm okay with that. We've only gotten a little bit of feedback about that, but I feel like that is a big question about privacy or whatever. So but that's bigger than us, you know. So I guess, I mean, I'm in support of all these other measures, so I'm going to support the bill. But I do think that's a big question about opening up any account. Now everyone will have to
Yeah, this
do
doesn't
an
apply
age.
to requiring every single account, unless if you're under 16, you have to have be verified.
Yeah, and it was just one more follow-up question that is more specific. But on lines 1, 16, 18 in the bill, let's see. Yeah, where we're prohibiting students from accessing social media platforms, you know, through the use of computer equipment, communication services, internet access that's owned, operated by the school system.
Read your number line you're reading from
Yeah,
again, Representative.
lines 116. So it's section 2.3, line 116.
Okay, start again then from
Okay, and
there.
it says prohibit students from accessing. Really 114. Each local governing body shall adopt a social media policy which shall prohibit students from accessing social media platforms through the use of the computer equipment, services, or internet access that is owned, operated, or leased and made available to students by the local governing body, the school system, or public school. So I would like to know, and I think many educators would like to know, is there any acceptable use of technology at school, like many schools, and what would there be a process for that? Like many schools do use YouTube and things like that.
Let me see.
It prohibits.
Yeah, so I think where this is going is that if and we can get greater clarity, but basically this is regulating the students directly. This is not necessarily what a teacher's putting up on the whiteboard and running video content. So I think there's a huge distinguishment between what a teacher is doing and what a minor, which is every kid in school, doing.
But the student would be able to. So if the teacher assigns the YouTube to look at, then it's
I don't
okay.
know. Yeah, I
And
mean, I
then-
can't speak for every school in Georgia, but I know in our schools, I don't know if teachers like assigning YouTube videos. I mean, everything is assigned through their school portal, the school pages, content approved curriculum. So I mean, that might be a different situation, but I don't know.
Well, this is a question that came from educators that they're concerned about this.
I
So.
get it. I live with an educator.
Okay, so the resolution is, are they all prohibited? Is it just the students? So the teachers aren't prohibited, but the students are prohibited.
Yeah, this is to make sure that content that students receive in a school is not in violation of this proposed policy in front of us. We're not regulating teachers.
Okay.
I love how one question is contagious because all of a sudden my board lights up now. Christmas tree here. We'll go in order, and we can come back to you. Let's step around, Representative, for a minute and see. Number 27, is that Representative Townsend? Are you 27?
Yes, sir, I am, Mr. Chair. A quick question, following up on that. Is it somewhere in this bill? I've read through it, but I may have missed it. If not, something, I don't know if we need to add or something DOE can add later as part of the policy, to where if a teacher's using it in their lessons at times, because at times certain teachers will involve different types of media in their instruction. Whether you have to have peer permission or not, that's fine. It's just, do we need to state it? I guess that's almost a question for you. If not, do we need to do a friendly amendment to add something like that in there? Or is it understood, or is it something we can just let DOE decide on that policy? I like the bill. I think it's good. It's just, I want to make sure we kind of give the teachers a little leeway.
Hold on, Representative. We'll let Senator answer, and then we can divert to Legislative Council.
Yeah, I'm not against that, and then I haven't turned around and looked in the back, but if the chairman says the school superintendent's in the room, I try not to speak for him, so maybe he wants to give comment on what he does or doesn't want to do. Not to put Richard on the spot.
I understand.
Legislative Council, would you respond to Representative Townsend's remarks there, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute. Got you.
So I apologize. This might be a little bit of a complex response, and I'll try to address Representative Townsend's question directly first, and that is the provisions of the existing law and the Parents' Bill of Rights already provide mechanisms for parents to have input and a complaint resolution process for instructional materials. So to the extent that what an educator is doing with any technology resources in the classroom could fall under that. If these are supplemental or ancillary instructional materials, then there's going to be some different provisions that apply to that, but there are already existing provisions in law that allow for parents to request to see the instructional materials that educators are using in the classroom and to express their concerns with that. I would also point out that the provisions that you're referring to, Representative Evans referred to lines starting at line 114. These do refer to the term social media platform, and if you look at line 113, social media platform has the same definition that is provided for in Code Section 39-6-1, which is the new chapter that is in Part 3 of this bill. So again, I apologize for the complexity here, but if you'll flip over to line 320, that provides a very lengthy definition of social media platform, including what technologies are and are not included in social media platform. So that very meaty definition of social media platform and the new provisions in Part 3 of the bill would actually reach back into the school-based provisions in Part 2 of the bill.
That makes sense. What I guess my concern then would be, I think would be to do a friendly amendment to still allow the parents, what current law is, anytime they want to review something like that, they should have a right to. I totally agree with that, the parents' rights. But I just want to make sure the teacher, if they're using it in the ag classroom or machining, I've seen it in various types of construction where they're actually using what we're talking about. I just want to make sure if they have to get permission first, that's fine. We just want to make sure it's laid out so DOE can implement, whether we need to do a friendly amendment, saying we opt in, opt out, whatever we want to do it. But I think it's important to kind of clarify it.
I would also add that what is required of the local school boards is to adopt a policy as to how these issues would be handled. That policy has to be adopted by April of 2026. What typically happens with the adoption of local school board policies is public meetings and public exchange. So it could be that would also be an element of the school board policy itself to provide the parents with that opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, if local control, if that happens, that's fine.
All right, let's keep going around the room. Number 2. Who is that? Representative Howard?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill as well. I think it's much needed. I just have a couple of questions. You mentioned something about a court. Has this been tested from a legal perspective as it relates to privacy? I heard you allude to that.
Thank you for the question, Representative Howard. So I know there's one, maybe 2 states. Let me back up to be clear. There are a handful of states that I know people have challenged, or in terms of litigation, some of those pieces of litigation in those other states do not resemble language that's in this bill, and there may be 1 or 2 where there's small hints of it, and most of that is around the definition of what is commercially reasonable. And so as we went through and did our research just in terms of kind of the back and forth of what's going on in some of those cases and what's going on, I think, we feel like this bill threads the needle very well in terms of being sensitive to those concerns to the best of our ability.
Okay, and to follow up on the part about, still on that one line 17, it says, through the use of computer equipment, communication services, and internet access. So if a student has his own private device, but he does not have internet access, he's accessing through the school's server, is that applicable to him as well, because he's not on his own iPad with his service?
Yeah, so if we were on, let's just say we were on my since it's my daughter Madison's birthday today, so if we were on my daughter Madison's phone, well, she don't have a phone, but if we were on her phone, and she didn't have internet service or access to her device, which I know our kids,
right,
that's the case, and she dialed in or tried to get into the wireless network, that wireless network would not get her access to these devices because they're going to be blocked by each school district.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you, sir.
Good advertisement right now would be that bill sitting in the Senate
That's
does
true.
exactly that same
That's
thing,
right.
Senator. Number
Love it.
1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'll put my name next to the concerns that Representative Evans had regarding the lines 112 through 16, because I know that you are familiar with the schools, but I know in Cobb we use YouTube and other things in other school systems, probably across the state. So we can't just make it tailored to one rural school system. The second thing is we still have in there grades 6 through 12. I know the desire of the author is that 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders don't use technology at that grade, but I think they do, based on your comments earlier. And so I just think I would be open to the amendment on that, and I don't know if that's coming or not. And then I guess the last piece is, will this, we have a job as a legislative body to educate children, and with the bill that passed last week, we will allow those funds to follow the child to a private school. Does this bill require the same concern over social media with private schools that it does public, or is this only going to apply to public schools?
So the way this bill is written is basically, I'll answer it this way. If you're a school, because I know where you're going, my dear friend from Cobb County. I think I don't want to say you're playing gotcha, but I get what you're saying in terms of.
No, these are legitimate questions regarding the bill that we have in front of us. And so my concern is that even in public schools, I can send my kid to one public school versus the other.
Right.
And if you say my choice as a parent is to send them there, then will those same choices apply to private schools as well? That's all I'm asking really is, does this apply to private schools?
Yeah, so the way this bill is written today, this is focusing on those public schools, school districts with local boards of education that are adopting model policies. This bill does not go in and regulate the private sector. in terms of kind of, what they're doing or not doing in their building. If I am one of the leaders of one of those schools, my hope is that they would adopt policies or regulations or whatever as it relates to their school, and that, this honestly, be okay in every school, just kind of across the board. But in terms of, the funding, I'm sure that's a bigger discussion. But this bill here today is about access, content, those pieces. But my hope is, we talk about personal responsibility for minors. I'm hopeful that, we see this policy, adopted broadly.
Senator,
Thank you, my friend.
the representative asking the question there is my 1A representative. He's we ask him to get one question out, and he's always asking for 1A.
You're curious.
But we'll let him do 1A again. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Give him two,
and
that's
I don't
okay.
know if this would be appropriate or not, but would you be willing to, if not in this bill, in some future bill, to say that any school that accepts public funds would be required to follow the same thing? So we're not telling all private schools, only those that accept public funds.
I mean, I'm focused on what we have here today. I think if you want to have that discussion, I think that's a different discussion. I think back to your other question in terms of, the age, I do, I could go both ways, but I think if the committee had decided, like, we just want to do this K through 12, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I mean, I think it's whatever committee wants to do.
Let me handle a couple of more, and then we can come back to that thought. And whatever we did, it'd need to be pre-K through 12, please. Number 21, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the appropriate time, just kind of keep us moving forward here. I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Just let me take one more question here, Representative Evans.
Thank you. Yes. So I would like for us to all look together at what we're prohibiting, just to make sure we're clear that we want to prohibit all these things. So online, we're prohibiting students from accessing social media platforms. And then if we go to page 14, line 325, so we're prohibiting email. I'm reading that wrong? Well, then let's, can you walk me through that? Because
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
yeah,
Yeah, the list starting on line 325 and then continuing on through 380 are instances that are not considered social media platforms. So those are
Okay,
the
good.
exceptions to the general definition
Line
of a social media
322.
platform.
so where is the definition of social media? It's on it's on line 320, is that?
The end of 322 is not.
It's everything else.
Okay, good, okay. So it will prohibit online forum that allows account holder to create a profile, upload posts, view and listen to posts. Okay, very good. All right, thank you, I stand corrected.
My mic back on. Vice Chair, now is the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion do pass on LC 491909S.
Got a motion and a second. Now, what I plan to do is take a vote, and we'll talk about amendments. All. Oh, that's right. Thank you. We're not going to take a vote, but we can talk amendments right now. I know there's been a couple back and forth right here. Representative Townsend, you want to?
Yeah, and this is where I want to make sure it's a friendly amendment. I just want to make sure something like they use in schools, Blackboard or other type software / social media would be allowed in pending board decision as in parents' permission. I mean, I'm all about parents' input, so I'm okay with that. I'm trying to figure out how I would word that. I want to make sure it's necessary before I do that, though. Because Blackboard is used pretty heavily in schools or something similar to that. and that would probably affect more your
Like the
A
virtual
through
boards.
12.
Like the virtual boards.
Correct.
Legislative Council, do you have a recommendation? Or is that recommendation still what you were saying on the?
Correct. To the extent that there is a need that could be addressed by the local school systems based at the local level on what their parent concerns are in that process, if there is a particular issue that needs to be addressed in the legislation, I don't quite have a sense of what the request is.
Basically, a platform such as Blackboard or other platforms like that. The senator mentioned virtual platform. Would you need extra permission for that? I mean, beyond what's already been done by the local school system, by the local board. If it's something in the hands of the local board, I think it's fine, and we'll leave it alone. I just want to make sure it's covered and we don't have a consequence at the end.
I'm not familiar with the technology that you're specifically describing, but if it's not a social media platform, then I would say it wouldn't be necessary. So unless that's...
It'd be open, it'd be back and forth between the students and the teacher, basically through social messaging.
Okay.
But it's more private.
Mr. Chairman, if there's interest in an amendment on this, I feel like I would benefit from the opportunity to have some side discussions to have a better idea of what's being asked for. I'm just not able to offer something.
Okay.
I could withdraw that, Mr. Chair, for now.
Okay, let's do it. We'll continue to move on with other amendments at this time and see that, you know, what I'm hearing some of is the local system representative can handle most of that inside the system with the local control that they already have. Let's look at number 1. Representative Wilkinson, you've got an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, if the author is okay with it, I would like to change line 61. Instead of saying in grades 6 through 12, say K through 12 or levels K through 12, however that it would be appropriate. And then leave it up to your language in the first couple of years may not be the same as robust as the other ones, but I think we should have the policies for those years. 61, right? Am I looking at the wrong one? Man, who gave me the wrong one? Man? I apologize. Oh, this is a great bill, man. I'm sorry. Okay, what line am I? 65.
It says
same
6
language.
through 12 on 65.
Yeah, it'd be K through 12 if that's okay. I was going to say pre-K, but I was trying to make it consistent with the other ones, but whatever, man. I'm fine with pre-K because some schools have pre-K.
Okay, we'll get a question on this amendment. Let's talk to the senator for a minute. Is that a friendly amendment to you?
Yeah, I mean, I know in the previous committee, my only concern was, you know, are we encouraging this conversation with younger ages, younger grades? I mean, I think, you know, there is a level of education that needs to happen as this stuff is seeping into the younger grades, which shouldn't be in the younger grades. But I'll you know, go with where, you know, the committee decides to go, but that's my only concern.
Let me ask Legislative Council, you know, pre-K through 12, do you see any issues there?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't. In other legislation this session, we have been specific and intentional to only refer to those pre-K programs that are part of Georgia's pre-K program. It'll take me just a moment to pull that language if you'd like to have it that specific. If we just say pre-K programs, I think that could create some question as to whether or not the local school boards would have a reach into pre-K programs that are not operated within their school systems. But with that caveat, I can pull that language and have it ready for you briefly.
Okay, do that, please. We got a few more questions on this, I believe, on this amendment now is what we're talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with the Senate sponsor here. I'm hard-pressed from a policy perspective. I appreciate what the representative is trying to do is to extend the protections to younger kids. I just, again, from a policy perspective, when I think about trying to educate a kindergartner, first grader, second grader on the distribution of disinformation, misinformation, how social media influences thoughts and behaviors, I don't know if they're exposed. I mean, you're right. It's seeping lower. I don't know if it's that low.
Well, the other part too is if I'm in a kindergarten or first grade class, and I'm going to provide, where's my comments? Going back to any sort of education discussion as relates to social, emotional, physical effects. The question I would have is that content appropriate for a kindergarten or first grader to engage in that discussion in an elementary school setting? I think it opens another level of discussion as to whether, I'll tell you straight up, like, if it was my sixth grader, I'd be in the principal's office raising, if this conversation was going on.
Yeah, it seems a little young to me. And maybe we can come back and revisit that if we're finding that becomes an issue.
I think the intentions are I think his intentions are right.
Yes.
But I think just that piece of it in the discussion could have some unintended consequences.
Thank you.
Let me after that discussion, Representative Wilkinson, are you
if it's not a friendly amendment, I won't make it. But I will add this, that we talk about alcohol before they reach the age of 21. We talk about dangers of premarital sex. We talk about many different issues before a child's ready to do it, because what you're doing is just like when you go to church, you instill values in them before they get to the age where they have to make the decisions. So that's the only reason. But I will withdraw that amendment if the author so desires. Yes.
okay? Seeing no more amendments, that's what we were talking about here, seeing no more of those. And there's some conversation that has to go on after we finish with a couple of you. And Senator, I would hope you would engage in those conversations too. Why don't we put this up for vote, since I don't see any more questions here. Let's see. We are working on that LC 491909S. So we're sure we're voting on the correct one here. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay. That passes. Thank you, Senator. And let me thank you, Senator, for both these bills on working for the safety of our children and thinking about that. I've seen a lot of work on this, on both these bills from you, and appreciate your thought and work on it. And don't tell me that Chairman Hilton's going to try to carry this one, is he?
That's what he says. I do want to just thank you, Mr. Chairman, and several of y'all for just the collaboration. I know our chamber sometimes, we disagree on some policy, but these two bills, others, I just want to intentionally say thank you for the work, because this is important and it's timely right now with, I think, the bigger threats our kids are facing in our schools.
No doubt. This is a place where some security can be lost. That's
Yes, sir.
for sure. And I often hear you can't unsee what you've seen. So thank you for this effort. Thank you, members, for today, and safe travels. We are adjourned.
Good job.